Back. Sorry, my mom was back at home and I gotta tell you something. Since April 2016, I own an Onkyo. Since April 2016, I bought and owned an Onkyo 7-channel Dolby Atmos Home Theater Surround Sound audio video receiver that does 5.1.2 channels of Dolby Atmos, and it has Dolby Surround upmixing, Bluetooth music streaming, and it has 4K pass-through and HDCP 2.2 pass-through, but it doesn't have, it also has DTSX, no, not that. It also has DTS HD Master Audio, but it doesn't have DTSX, DTS VirtualX, DTS NeuralX, Dolby Atmos Height Virtualization. Doesn't have multiple HDR formats with it doesn't have multiple HDR formats with Dolby Vision. It doesn't have 4K upscaling. It doesn't have multiple music streaming apps, and it's still a good Dolby Atmos receiver, but it's missing a lot of features that I wanted on a new receiver. Like last year when I got a new receiver, I wanted a new receiver because last year when I got the Onkyo TXS, since November 6, 2021, me and my family bought a Klipsch 5.1.2 channel Dolby Atmos Home Theater Surround Sound loudspeaker system, like I showed you in the last video. And I gotta tell you something, is that we also bought speaker wires. I also bought a new Onkyo AQ-EQ room calibration, microphone calibration. I got a new Onkyo TXSR444 AQ-EQ room calibration, room correction microphone for the receiver. I printed out new instructions. So the speakers came a month or two. We hooked up the speakers, and we calibrated all the speakers, and they work. The only thing that doesn't work is the front speakers. Even though it sounded very good, it sounded more like a 3.1.2 with surround speakers, Atmos height speakers firing up at the flat ceiling, that's 8 foot, and a subwoofer, not the front speakers. So on Thanksgiving week 2022, I hooked up the front speakers with my remaining speaker wire to the receiver, and I calibrated them multiple times, and they work really, really well. I watch a lot of high-octane movies, TV shows, and music, and they sound very, very good, especially when watching Dolby Atmos content. Well, my TV doesn't have Dolby Atmos over HDMI ARC, so I had to connect my Apple TV, which my Apple TV is Dolby Atmos certified. I have an Apple TV 4K HDR media player. It's a streaming media player that has Apple iTunes content, multiple streaming apps for movies, TV shows, sports, and music, news, etc. It's got Dolby Atmos, Dolby Vision, 4K and HDR. The reason why it had to be connected to the TV with an HDMI ARC or with an HDMI cable is that the receiver I used to own didn't have HDR and Dolby Vision, just 4K pass-through, no HDR and Dolby Vision. So I wanted to buy a new receiver since I heard that Denon came out with new Dolby Atmos Home Theater Surround Sound receivers with DTSX, DTS NeuralX, DTS VirtualX, Dolby Surround upmixing, and Dolby Atmos Height Virtualization. It has multiple HDR formats with Dolby Vision, 8K 60, 4K 120 pass-through and upscaling. It's got HEOS and multiple music streaming apps. It's got Odyssey with dynamic volume and dynamic EQ, and Odyssey multi-EQ. And I gotta tell you something. I've read a lot of reviews on buying a new Dolby Atmos and DTSX home theater surround sound receiver. So I wanted to buy a Denon AVRS970H because I read it got very good reviews by critics and users. And I was watching a lot of high-octane movies, shows, and music on my Onkyo TXSR444 and Dolby Atmos home theater surround sound speakers with Klipsch, while the front speakers and all the speakers are connected to the receiver. So even though a lot of movies show the Dolby Atmos logo while connecting the Apple TV to the TV and hooking and connecting the receiver to the HDMI ARC port, it didn't output send or Dolby Atmos signal from the TV to the receiver, like watching movies on Vudu, iTunes, Max, Disney Plus. They have the Dolby Atmos logo, but it wasn't able to output it from the TV to the receiver. Same with Blu-rays. I have a lot of Blu-rays with Dolby Atmos and DTSX, so I wanted a new receiver from Denon that has Dolby Atmos, DTSX, Dolby Surround Upmixing, DTS Neural X, Dolby Atmos High Virtualization, DTS Virtual X, 4K and 8K Passthrough and Upscaling, multi-HDR with Dolby Vision, multiple musical streaming apps, multiple musical streaming apps via HEOS, Bluetooth, the high performance, high end, high fidelity, high quality, a high performance, high end, high fidelity, high quality, digital to analog converter for great surround sound, a high performance, high discrete power amplifier, and the Denon AVRS970H, along with other Denon 2022 Dolby Atmos and DTSX receivers, got very great reviews by critics and users. The AVRS970H I got in June 2023, and I set it up with the speakers. It took a little time to get everything working correctly, and it worked really flawlessly. So far, now I can connect my Apple TV. Well, originally I had to connect my Apple TV with 4K HDR, Dolby Vision, and Dolby Atmos to the TV because the TV doesn't have Dolby Atmos and my receiver doesn't have HDR and Dolby Vision. But my Apple TV is Dolby Atmos, and I read some internet reviews. No, I read some internet community reviews on how to get. On the internet, I read some internet reviews that are from the community on owners that have an LG OLED 4K HDR B6 in 2016 TV and their Apple TV 4K on how to get Dolby Atmos with tvOS 12, which was what I have. And they say you shouldn't connect your Apple TV with 4K HDR and Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos streaming media player to the TV and connect the TV with an ARC with a Dolby Atmos soundbar or receiver and speakers because it won't pass through Dolby Atmos that way. They say with the LG OLED B6 4K HDR Dolby Vision OLED Smart TV and a Dolby Atmos Home Theater Surround sound system with a receiver or a Dolby Atmos soundbar system, you have to connect your Apple TV 4K HDR Dolby Vision Dolby Atmos streaming media player to the receiver or soundbar, then passes through the Dolby Atmos pass-through is being outputted from the Apple TV to the receiver. Then it passes through the 4K HDR Dolby Vision video signals from the receiver to the TV. Like, I gotta tell you something. I bought the Denon AVRS970H 7-channel 5.1.2 or 5.2.2 channel Dolby Atmos and DTSX premium home theater surround audio video receiver for nearly $800 plus tax. I got my speakers for nearly $2,500, and I got my TV for $2,000 in 2017 of March, and I now, not only my receiver has HDR and Dolby Vision, but it has a high-end, high-performance, high-quality, high-fidelity, very great surround sound quality. It has a high-end, high-performance, high-quality, high-fidelity, high-resolution digital-to-analog converter for great surround sound. It has great sound quality, great 3D object-based multi-dimensional moving surround sound quality. It's got high-end, high-performance, high-quality, high-fidelity, high-resolution room correction, calibration, room correction, EQ, software technology, Odyssey multi-EQ, and it has dynamic volume and dynamic EQ. And I was able to now I can connect my Apple TV to the receiver because my Apple TV is Dolby Atmos compatible. It's 4K HDR Dolby Vision, and my receiver is Dolby Atmos, Dolby Vision, and 4K HDR compatible. So, but my TV isn't Dolby Atmos compatible. It's 4K HDR Dolby Vision. So I connected my Apple TV to the receiver, and not only a lot of movies, TV shows, or music say the Dolby Atmos logo on a lot of their streaming services like Netflix, Amazon, iTunes, Apple TV, Disney Plus, Max, formerly HBO Max. Paramount Plus, or even Apple iTunes Music. Not only a lot of movies, TV shows, and music are showing the Dolby Atmos logo, but on my built-in TV streaming app for my LG OLED V6, some streaming services with Dolby Atmos are not showing Dolby Atmos, just 5.1 something. But my Apple TV connected to the receiver, with my Apple TV with 4K HDR, Dolby Vision, and Dolby Atmos streaming media player connected to the receiver, a lot of movies, shows, and music on multiple streaming apps are saying the Dolby Atmos logo and is being outputted, sent, and the Dolby Atmos signal is being outputted and sent from the Apple TV to the receiver in order for the input signal to say Dolby Atmos. Once I set into Dolby Atmos mode, the Atmos upward firing height elevation loudspeakers doesn't work, so I change it to multi-channel stereo, and the Dolby Atmos upward firing height elevation loudspeakers work very flawlessly, and the input signal will say Dolby Atmos. Then the 4K HDR or Dolby Vision video signals is being outputted and sent and passed through from the receiver to the TV in great sync. And I gotta tell you something, I'm finally able to output and send Dolby Atmos signals from an Apple TV to the receiver and pass through 4K HDR Dolby Vision video signals from the receiver to the TV. It's a great combination. And for people who own an LG OLED 4K HDR TV from 2016, I would recommend for you to buy a Dolby Atmos Home Theater Surround sound system, either a receiver that's a 7-channel or 9-channel Dolby Atmos DTSX Home Theater Surround sound receiver. Make sure you buy 7 to 9 speakers, including 4 to 2 upward firing height elevation Dolby Atmos DTSX speakers. Buy a subwoofer and buy an Apple TV 4K HDR with Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos so you can connect it to the receiver. That will not only a lot of movies and shows and music will show the Dolby Atmos logo, but it will be able to pass through Dolby Atmos from that Apple TV to the receiver and pass through the 4K HDR Dolby Vision video signals from the receiver to the TV, or just get a high performance, high-end, high fidelity Dolby Atmos, or try getting a Dolby Atmos Home Theater Surround soundbar system with an Apple TV connected to the soundbar. You know what? For people who own a 2016 4K HDR, for those who own a 4K HDR OLED Dolby Vision Smart TV from LG for 2016, just buy a 7-channel or 9-channel Dolby Atmos DTSX Home Theater Surround Sound audio video receiver with HDR Dolby Vision, 9 or 7 speakers, including 4 or 2 upward firing height elevation loudspeakers or ceiling speakers for Dolby Atmos DTSX, and 1 subwoofer. Just make sure you don't spend too much money, and make sure your ceiling is 8 foot flat or 12 feet flat to bounce sound off the ceiling with your upward firing speakers, or try to mount speakers near the ceiling. And when you buy an Apple TV 4K HDR Dolby Vision media player with Dolby Atmos and connect it to the receiver, just like how I have it. And don't forget, I have a 4K HDR Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos DTSX Blu-ray player from Oppo, which they don't make anymore. It's still connected to the receiver that has Dolby Atmos DTSX, but the bad news is that Dolby Atmos or DTSX signals are not being outputted from the Blu-ray player to the receiver, but is able to pass through 4K HDR or Dolby Vision signals from the receiver to the TV, even though a lot of movies I have on Blu-ray or 4K Blu-ray have a Dolby Atmos or DTSX soundtrack, and the main menus will show Dolby Atmos. It's just that I won't be able to output it from the Blu-ray from the receiver. Only my Apple TV with 4K HDR Dolby Vision with Dolby Atmos streaming media player is able to output Dolby Atmos from the Apple TV to the Blue receiver and pass through 4K HDR Dolby Vision video signals from the receiver to the TV. And I was blown away by my experience, and my expectations were completely blown away. I've watched a lot of movies, I'm gonna watch some shows, and I've listened to a lot of high-end music, I've watched a lot of Dolby Atmos movies and some Dolby Atmos shows. Like I've watched Falcon and the Winter Soldier in Dolby Atmos. I watched Captain America Civil War in Dolby Atmos. 2 of the Mission Impossible movies in Dolby Atmos. I've watched 4 of the Indiana Jones movies on 4K Blu-ray with Dolby Atmos. Fast and Furious 10 in Dolby Atmos. Let me see. And I watched the first Independence Day in DTSX on 4K HDR Blu-ray. I've seen a lot of high-octane movies, whether it's streaming or discs. I've listened to a lot of music, whether it's country, EDM, rock, and more. I've watched one TV show in Dolby Atmos called Falcon the Winter Soldier, and they sound a lot much better than a soundbar and my TV speakers. And when watching movies like Mission Impossible 3, even though it's not in Dolby Atmos, it's being upmixed to Dolby Surround, I can hear a lot of 3D surround sound objects like helicopters flying above and around, beyond and through and in and beyond me and in me. It's like an immersive home theater surround sound experience that you can't get from a soundbar or TV speakers. Like, I don't like soundbars anymore because lots of them lack the true surround sound quality of a traditional home theater surround sound system. And for those who don't want to spend a lot of money on a Dolby Atmos home theater surround sound system with a receiver, or for those who are afraid of wiring the room, try getting a wireless Dolby Atmos and DTSX 5-channel or 7-channel or 9-channel or 11-channel Dolby Atmos home theater surround sound sparse. Or for those who don't want to spend a lot of money on buying a Dolby Atmos home theater surround sound system with a receiver, just buy a wireless 5.1.2 or 0.4, 7.1.2 or 4, 7.2.4 or 7.2.2, 9.1.4, 9.1.4, 9.2.4, or an 11.1.4 or 11.4.6 wireless home theater surround soundbar Dolby Atmos system with a soundbar with upward firing speakers, a subwoofer that's big or medium, or 2 big surround speakers that have upward firing speakers. It will sound much better than normal soundbars and TV speakers, but it's not going to sound the same as a soundbar. And you'll get a movie theater Dolby Atmos experience, but you got to make sure that your ceiling is flat, not very high or vaulted or angled. You got to make sure your ceiling is 8 to 12 feet, and you got to make sure. And the upward firing speakers, you want to make sure it's in a flat ceiling. But I like receivers better than speakers. They sound very, very great. And I've been watching a lot of high-octane movies. I watched Armageddon in 5.1, and it sounded really great. It sounds like you can hear asteroids flying above the ceiling. I watched a lot of man, I love my new receiver from Denon. It's a Denon AVRS970H. It got very great reviews from critics and users, and I'm completely freaking blown away by this system. It has all the features I want that it didn't have on my receiver. It had DTSX, DTS Neural X, DTS Virtual X. It has multiple HDR formats with Dolby Vision. It's got high performance, high current, power, discrete amplification technology. It's got a high-end, high quality, high performance, high fidelity, high resolution digital to analog converter. It's got a higher end, high quality, high performance, high fidelity, high resolution room correction software, Odyssey EQ, Odyssey multi-EQ with Odyssey dynamic volume and Odyssey dynamic EQ. When turned those on and when calibrated with Odyssey multi-EQ, they sound very great, and it worked well. And the Odyssey EQ room correction software technology worked very well with my Dolby Atmos upward firing high elevation loudspeakers. It sounded very immersive. I can hear and feel a lot of bass. I can hear and feel lots of surround sound in 3D flying above. I've listened to a lot of music and a lot of movies, and I've watched one TV show with Dolby Atmos. Soon I'll watch more shows on my new Dolby Atmos receiver and speakers. I'll watch more sports. It's such an immersive cinema experience that no other soundbar can replicate, and it's so effing good. It's like I've been watching more. In fact, my Dolby Atmos and DTSX 5.1.2 channel home theater surround sound system with a Denon AVRS970H receiver with Dolby Atmos and DTSX. It sounds extremely immersive. It sounds extremely cinematic. It sounds extremely impactful. It sounds very immersive. It sounds awesome. And I was pulled right into right in the center of the action, and I was blown away by the experience. I can feel a lot of bass. In fact, my room doesn't need more than my room doesn't need 2 subwoofers, 2 more surround speakers, or even my room doesn't need 2 more Atmos upward firing high elevation loudspeakers. It can handle, my room is 18 times 15 feet wide, and it's an 8-foot flat ceiling, and it's a 5.2.4 to 5.1.4 channel Dolby Atmos home theater surround sound system with the receiver. Won't work in our room. It works for bigger rooms, but we don't need another. We don't need another subwoofer. It sounds very loud. Our receiver and speakers can get very, very loud and punchy and immersive and full of high resolution, great clarity, great dialogue, great sound effects. It sounds so awesome. Is that when I'm unable to see the latest big blockbuster hit movies in theaters, whether it's Dolby Cinema, IMAX Laser, or even Universal Cinema and AMC Cinemark Hollywood with Dolby Atmos, I can experience it at home with my Dolby Atmos and DTSX home theater surround sound receiver and speakers that I have. It sounds awesome, and it's fully immersive. It's like while watching movies, shows, listening to music, and watching sports. I haven't watched sports or watched more shows yet, but it pulls me in and right into the center and deeper, and pulls me right in the center of the action. It pulls me right in the middle of the action. It sounds like I'm watching it in the way the sound mixers, the sound editors, the dialogue Foley team, the musical team, the musical bands, the artists, the music producers, composers, music editors, music arrangers, music score, mixer and recorders, and even sound recordists intend you to watch it. And my TV is so awesome. I'm watching a lot of movies and shows, and I love it. I love my TV. It's a great TV. It has OLED HDR Dolby Vision. It makes movies and shows shine, and it looks really, really awesome. Even some animated movies look good on my OLED TV, whether it's 2K HD SDR, 4K UHD HDR. It looks really good, and when combined with my Denon and Klipsch 5.1.2 channel Dolby Atmos home theater surround sound receiver based system, it makes it to a whole nother level. All you have to do is, like I did, connect the Apple TV 4K HDR Dolby Vision Dolby Atmos streaming media player to the receiver, and it will show Dolby Atmos and pass through it from the Apple TV to the receiver. And I have a 4K HDR Blu-ray player with Dolby Atmos, Dolby Vision, DTSX that's connected to the receiver. I have a lot of Dolby Atmos and DTSX and a lot of DTS surround soundtracks on Blu-ray, and they sound extremely great. I love the Dolby Surround and DTS Neural X for watching Dolby Atmos and DTSX Blu-rays, or even high-definition surround sound 2D traditional channel-based movies. It sounded very great, and I love the bad news is I couldn't pass through Dolby Atmos and DTSX from the Blu-ray player to the receiver. It only shows Dolby 5.1 surround digital. It only shows Dolby Digital 5.1 surround or DTS 5.1 surround. But when you come up, that's why the Dolby Atmos and DTSX content on Blu-ray is not being outputted from the Blu-ray player to the receiver. But however, I love using Dolby Surround and DTS Neural X for watching Dolby Atmos and DTSX Blu-rays. It makes Dolby Atmos and DTSX content not being outputted from the Blu-ray player to the receiver very three-dimensional and more atmospheric. In fact, My Dolby Atmos home theater surround sound system from Klipsch is from Klipsch, and my Denon AVRS970H receiver, it sounds very extremely three-dimensional and way more atmospheric. It got very great reviews by critics and users. I love my receiver. I'll watch more movies and shows and listen to more music and watch more sports if I have time with my receiver. It's so good. I want it to last extremely very long time. I want my Apple TV to last extremely very long. I don't want both of them to die out. I'm in love with my system. Maybe in the future, when I may buy a new 4K HDR OLED Dolby Vision Smart TV at 55 inches from either LG or Sony. Even my Denon AVRS970H paired with a Klipsch 5.1.2 channel Dolby Atmos and DTSX home theater surround sound system paired with my LG OLED 4K HDR Dolby Vision Smart TV with my Apple TV 4K HDR Dolby Vision Dolby Atmos streaming media player and my Oppo 4K HDR Dolby Vision Dolby Atmos DTSX Blu-ray player connected to the receiver. It sounds like, it not only feels like it sounds like a real-life Dolby and IMAX movie theater, but it rivals my nearby movie theaters with Dolby Atmos and 4K HDR laser projector and IMAX laser theaters with 12-channel object-based multi-dimensional moving surround sound and IMAX 4K HDR laser projector on a very tall and humongous giant screen. I love my system. It rocks solid. It's so great. It gets very loud and punchy. I don't need to upgrade more speakers. It sounds very good. It sounds immersive. And I'll watch more shows that either mixed in Dolby Atmos or not. I'll watch more movies mixed in Dolby Atmos or not. Or even music mixed in Dolby Atmos or not. Oh, in fact, I want to try out spatial audio on Apple Music. Like my Apple TV does have Apple Music, and a lot of music is showing Dolby Atmos. And if I have the money, I really want to try Apple Music spatial audio for Dolby Atmos, so I can listen to more Dolby Atmos music, which makes music sound way more immersive. But Spotify sounds very great when it's on multi-channel stereo. It even makes it more three-dimensional and atmospheric, with the upper firing speakers working very flawlessly. It's so awesome. I love my receiver and speakers, and it's like incomparable. It sounds great. And if you're looking to upgrade your TV speakers and not want a soundbar, just buy a Dolby Atmos home theater surround sound audio video receiver with 7 to 9 speakers and a subwoofer, and make sure you don't spend more than $5,000 on a new Dolby Atmos home theater surround sound system with the receiver. Try to spend like don't forget to buy wires, HDMI connections, and a 4K Blu-ray player or an Apple TV. And it's so awesome. And that's it. Bye.